All right, so I want to welcome everyone to this session. We are going to have Shelee Clark, who is currently principal at Lakewood Elementary School in Hardin County, share with us kind of lessons learned. She's got 11 years of experience. This is her 12th year as a principal, and so she's had an opportunity to reflect and wants to share with us today some tips that she's learned along the way. So, Shelee, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Like Stacey said, just here to share what I've learned over my 11 years as principal at Lakewood Elementary here in Hardin County. So obviously during that time, I've made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot from those mistakes and then found some things that worked well. And it's always my pleasure to share those kind of things with others so that hopefully you can make use of those strategies and make sure that your principalship is successful. So my first tip is about trust and transparency. And so in order to build trust within your school, you have to have collaboration among everybody working together. And the best way, in my opinion, to do that is by creating transparency. If you share information that you have, that you're able to share, anything that's not confidential, uh, you share it with everybody. And the more people that can access that information, the better, because knowledge is empowering and communication is essential. So every time I learn something, if it's something that's information that came down from the district, I try to put it out there in newsletters. We do keep all of our information on a shared Google Drive. That's how we have transparency in our school. All of our schedules are on that shared drive, everyone's lesson plans. So we try to build that camaraderie as a school through transparency and everybody sharing everything with everyone. This idea of transparency kind of came from watching the video that's linked up in the slides. We're not going to watch that video today just for the sake of time, but if you get a chance to go back and watch Mr. Tapscott's video, he talks about how we live in an age of information and that people are accustomed to being able to get whatever information they need when they need it, and they like to have that same kind of feeling at their workplace as they do in their life. And so if you get a chance to watch that video, take the time to watch that. It'll kind of give you the rationale behind why transparency is so important in the workplace. And it's going to start to play it when I'll skip over it. There we go. My next thing, and I actually have this quote usually right on my wall where I can see it all day. It's because it's so important to remember that there are days when you will spend 90% of your time dealing with 10% of the people you have the opportunity to interact with. So on those days, you have to remember that the other 90% of the people that you only spend 10% of your time with, we're all doing the right thing. They were doing things that are helping your school be successful, helping students be successful. And so it's important to remember the 90%. Remember the 90% that were doing things that did not need your full attention. I know Mr. Whitaker shared this morning that we should spend more of our time with those 90%, but a lot of times, if you think about urgency, sometimes things happen that are urgent. You have a student that's having an emotional day. Obviously, you can't ignore that. You have to help that kiddo, but that kiddo may take up a good portion of your day where you have to spend it with that kid instead of the students that were all doing the right thing. So one of the ways that I try to remember the 90% is to send thank you notes to staff members who are doing the right thing. And then I hope that trickles down. We actually do take time for staff to write students notes that are doing the right thing too. So I think just any kind of words of affirmation or appreciation for people that are doing the right thing always helps. And I just make myself a note in my planner every week my goal every week is to write 3 to 5 thank you notes to those 90% of people that we're doing the right thing. And so remember the 90%. They are the reason that you have success, and they're the reason that the school carries on even when you're dealing with those 10% of people. Set expectations and follow through. What gets monitored is what gets done. If something is important to you as a leader, you should lay out the expectations, the goals with your staff, and then you have to follow through by monitoring that. So spend time in the classroom, spend time in the school, making sure that what's important to you is what's happening. And if it's not happening, take time to go over the expectations again and make sure that everyone knows that's what you're looking for, and give people feedback. Again, if they're doing the right thing, tell them. And if they're struggling, give them some suggestions of how to make it better and how to follow those expectations. Some of our key things at our school is we have a dedicated time every day for MTSS, and everyone has expectations to follow during those 45 minutes. So we do fidelity checks as a counselor, assistant principal, myself, and make sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to do at that time. We also have an expectation that every class have morning meeting first thing in the morning, the first 15 minutes of the day. So we monitor that, and we go around, take pictures of people doing the right thing, and give them shout outs in our newsletters. So what is expected is what happens in your school building, and it's important to monitor that. Surround yourself with people who share your vision, and also people who complement your strengths and weaknesses. So it's really important that you reflect on who you are as a leader, who you are as a person, your characteristics and your traits. And then when you're have an opportunity to hire someone into your leadership staff, try to find people who are not just like you, but who complement the strengths and weaknesses that you have. So I am personally not a very lovey-dovey, affectionate kind of person, which a lot of people think is kind of strange for an elementary school principal. You know, a lot of elementary principals are more like, oh, I want to hug everybody and smiling and laughing all the time, but I'm just a very serious person, and that is not me. So I made sure and hired a school counselor who's a lot of high energy, and she brings that element to our team and really helps our school have that excitement, that level that you like for elementary kiddos to have from every now and then. So it's so important to know yourself and to know who can complement your strengths and weaknesses. And then in addition to that, make sure they know what your vision is and that they share your vision. So that is one of the most important questions as part of every interview for every staff member I have here at our school, is I always tell people what our vision is. I explain what that vision means to me, and then I ask them how are they going to contribute to that vision with their strengths as a person. So it's a very important part of our interview process to talk about vision and make sure that everyone understands what it is, and that if you are a staff member here, it is your job to contribute to that vision. Next up is message the why. So every time you're having a meeting, faculty meeting, PLC meeting, committee meeting, whatever it may be sure they know why they're meeting. If the information is worth taking their time for a meeting, they deserve to know why it's important and how it relates to the vision and the mission of your school. The why helps everyone understand the meaning behind the decisions that were made and the procedures that will need to be followed. If you've ever been part of the work from a Studer Education Group, this is one of their 9 principles for organizational excellence. And it's one that I have found to be very meaningful. And so at the beginning of every slideshow that I create for any kind of meeting, we always have the why on the very first slide. Like, why are we meeting today? Why is this important? How does it tie to our school's vision and mission? And when you tell people why you're taking up their time, they're more likely to buy into whatever it is you're going to talk about. And if something's not important enough to be necessary for your mission and vision, then it's probably not worth meeting about. So it may be something you just send in an email because it's probably just informational. So that's a good temperature check a lot of times for, does this need a meeting, or is this something that I can just, send out as information that somebody can read? So always message the why. The next one is another video, and this is I believe an old Chinese proverb that says, eat your frog first thing in the morning. I have never enjoyed conflict. I don't know many people who love conflict. You've got that thing that you have to get done that you're dreading. Do it first. And if you do that thing that you're dreading first. The rest of your day will be much easier and better because that will be over and you won't be thinking about what am I going to say to that person? How are they going to react to what I have to say? So if you're having to call a parent who likes to yell at you every time that you call them, just get it done. As soon as you know you have to call them, do it first thing. Then you won't be sitting there thinking, overthinking what you're going to say and planning and wondering how they're going to react. And then you spend all of your time on the what ifs instead of just getting it done. So always address conflict as soon as it comes up. And if it's something that you knew from the end of the day yesterday that you're going to have to deal with first thing in the morning, then eat your frog first. So if the worst thing you got to do in the day is eat a frog, might as well get it over with first thing in the morning. So that's a good piece of advice that saved me a lot of headaches sometimes. And it's funny because I always tell that to the people I work with too. And last year, my assistant principal does all of the classified evaluations, and there was one person she was kind of dreading doing their evaluation, and so she kept it for last. And then that person was on leave for the rest of the year due to an illness. And she said to me, she goes, "I should have ate my frog first. I should have went ahead and done that evaluation because I knew it was going to be the hardest, and there were some things that that person needed to work on." So it is a hard lesson to learn. And sometimes if you don't follow that advice in that situation, it can come back to bite you that you didn't get that evaluation done at all because that person went on leave. So definitely important lesson. And it's going to try to play that video too. It's just a cute little video about the frog if you want to watch it later or use it when you're trying to teach other people about that concept. Next up is showing appreciation to our teachers. Again, back to Whitaker's message from this morning, it's not our job necessarily to take care of the teachers, it's our job, or the students, it's our job to take care of the teachers so that they can take care of the students. And so one way to do that is, taking time to get to know your staff, having lunch with a different group each week, participating in scheduling school outings for your staff, but have them take a survey to determine their likes and dislikes. And one of the ways you can do that is through Gary Chapman and Paul White's book, The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. Some of you, if you've ever attended like couples groups or anything like that, you may have heard of the 5 love languages. This is that same concept applied to the workplace. And so we did take a little survey here at Lakewood. You can pay to have that survey taken through Mr. Chapman and Mr. White's company. And then it'll tell you what everyone's appreciation language is. Some people like words of affirmation. Some people like quality time. Some people like tangible gifts. They want actual items. So some people like myself like acts of service. My favorite thing is when everybody comes to work and I don't have to be a substitute for the day. So acts of service is definitely my love language. And some people it's actual physical touch. They want a physical pat on the back or a high five, or if they're having a hard day, they like, a hug or whatever it may be. But knowing how people like their appreciation is very key. Some people don't like it if you put a shout out to them in the newsletter because they get embarrassed by that. But they would appreciate if you just came up and, gave them a little side hug and say, "I really appreciate what you did," just a little private kind of affirmation for them. So knowing that and then taking the time to make emotional deposits for those people is very key. Knowing your staff and how they want to be appreciated. If you take care of them, they will take care of the students. So taking the time to make sure they know they're appreciated is very key. And it can be something that does take up a lot of time, but if you share the load, it helps. So actually at our school, between myself, the counselor, and the assistant principal, we make a spreadsheet with everybody's name on it. And every time one of us shows appreciation to a staff member, we just put the date on there and maybe like a little note about what we did, like sent them a note or left a candy bar on their desk or whatever it may be, just so that we have like documentation that, hey, at some point during the school year, everybody got touched by us at least 1 or 2 times to say that we appreciate the work that you do. And of course, we do things as, whole staff too. We have goodie days and we have, the happy cart that comes around and delivers popcorn to everybody or whatever it may be. But we really try to track those individual touches where we've taken time to show appreciation to different staff members. All right, and there's a little video about emotional bank accounts there too, if you want to go back and watch that later. We're going to move on to number 8. It is prioritize programs and processes within your school. So as I said, I've been Lakewood's principal for this is my 12th year now. I was assistant principal before that, and before that I taught 4th grade here for 8 years. So I've definitely been in the school a long time, and pretty much since it opened. And so when I became principal here, the principal before me, great principal, great guy, but had started a lot of programs and processes in the time that he'd been principal. So one of the first things we did is we actually took time to list every program and process that we were doing in our school. And then we put them on little pieces of paper and we made a tree. And at the trunk of the tree, we put what are going to be our core values, what's our mission, what's important to us as a school. And on the roots, we had all the programs we think help us get to that core mission or vision. And then the leaves were the desired outcomes. Like, what do we want to see students able to do because we're doing these programs that help us get to our core values? What are students going to be able to do? And any program or process that didn't help us get to our desired outcomes, we put it in the compost pile. And we said, you know what? If this is not helping us get to our desired outcomes, we probably don't need to do this program anymore. So really taking the time to go through everything that you're doing and prioritize what is the most important for our school. Because you can do a lot of things, but you're not going to be able to do a lot of things really well. If you prioritize and you get down to just what is the most important and maybe each subject or as a school, like what are your most important things, and then focus on those and become very, very good at them. You can go a lot deeper with a few things and become very, very good at those few things. And then you can, once you get good at something that's part of your ingrained in your culture, then you can add one more thing. But constantly adding programs and processes just because it's the latest and greatest thing is not going to get you anywhere, because it may not match your mission or vision. It may not match your desired outcomes. So it's important to do that process every year at the beginning, maybe every 3 to 5 years after that. It's about time for us to do it again here at our school. So we the district's added some priorities for us, which is fine, but we need to look at, if we're going to have to do those priorities and processes, what as a school did we prioritize that maybe we need to look at, is it still helping us get to those desired outcomes? So there are some things that come down that are mandates from the state or even the district, and then you have to prioritize, well, what have we been doing as a school to help make sure that we're not doing too many things at once. And so that's a very important process as you get started as a principal to do. Number 9, ask for help when you need it. Don't be afraid to get you a network of other principals that you can reach out to for support, and ask your district people for help. They are there to support principals so that you can support teachers so that they can support students. So make sure you reach out to district personnel and then get you a good cadre of other principals. They don't have to be from your district. When I first started out as principal, I became part of a Twitter chat, #KYAdmin, and reached out to a lot of great principals across the state that helped me learn a lot of these important lessons. So find you a group. The KASA has a lot of groups that are great. Join some kind of group of people that you can count on to ask questions. And ask for help and ideas when you're struggling with something. Reach out to those people. Don't feel like you have to reinvent everything and come up with ideas all on your own. Being here today is a great step. Like, even if you leave here today with just a few ideas from every session, or even just one idea from every session, you can take those little snippets of ideas and make them your own, and make your school what you want it to be and your principalship what you want it to be. I presented earlier today on an MTSS process we use, and I had gotten that idea from a session like these. So you can take these ideas, you can make them your own, you can add to them, and then someday you can share them with other people and the success that you've had with those ideas. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And then finally, good old Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Leadership begins with you. If you want the students and your staff in your building to act a certain way, to be a certain way, you first have to act that way and be that way. So if you expect your teachers to attend professional learning sessions, you should be there with them. You should be there learning alongside them, listening to the same things they're listening to, because it's really hard for you to give them feedback on something if you've not learned about it yourself. If you want the members of your school community to be kind, you got to treat people with kindness. If you want people to be patient, you've got to be patient. If you want people to forgive, you've got to be forgiving. So just remember that how you treat others as a principal will be how they treat everyone in your school community. So it's very important to always begin that leadership with yourself, with modeling the behaviors that you want. Those are my 10 tips. So now if anybody has any questions about any of them, we can certainly go back and hit on any of those 10.
Shelee, you did have a question from Brad, and I think it was one of the earlier tips. And
All right.
Brad, feel free to unmute if you want, but I saw it in the chat about monitoring versus micromanaging.
Yes, that's a great question. That was, I think, on the set expectations and follow through.
Yeah, it was just it's something that had come up recently that was discussed, and it's that feeling of when you do monitor those things and you do those walkthroughs, which all the things that, and I like being in the classroom, but then when you have teachers that think, well, that's you're micromanaging, like how do you balance that?
I think it's just mostly a culture kind of thing. Like, if you spend time in there and you don't always give feedback, like you said, you enjoy being in the classroom. So sometimes just go in and take a picture of something awesome and, put it on social media saying, hey, I love how this person was doing this, and not make every time about monitoring something. The other thing I found has helped with monitoring versus micromanaging is a lot of times I'll specifically say, hey, today I'm coming through to do walkthroughs on questioning, and that's what I'm going to be looking for. So I try to give them like a heads up a little bit, and then they feel like, okay, I know what she's going to look for today, so I'm going to get some success. And I don't do that every time. But what I asked teachers one time, I was like, what do you want out of a walkthrough? Because I had gotten back my feedback from like the old TEL survey or something, and it said that the principal wasn't giving enough feedback. And I'm like, okay, well, what kind of feedback do you want? And ultimately, they all wanted just praise. They didn't ever want anything that was corrective in nature or like you're micromanaging. They just wanted to hear that they're doing a good job.
Right.
And so I try to do that. Like I probably make a balance of like 70% of it is positive and like 30% is like, here's some things I think you could work on or get better at. So I try to make majority of it positive. Now you have some cases where there's a teacher who it's really hard to find the positive because they're still learning, but maybe you can even just focus on, okay, I noticed you had a really great relationship with this one student today. It can be something really small, or I like your bulletin board that focuses on mindfulness or something like that. It doesn't always have to be about their teaching. As long as you give them some kind of positive sometime, then they tend to take the little snippets of instruction better. I think that's just a culture thing. Like I said, just giving them a heads up sometimes. Hey, I'm coming through. I'm looking for this today. They get that feeling of affirmation of, okay, I know what she's going to look for, so I'm going to try to make sure I'm doing that today. Any other questions? All right. Well, if anybody has any questions at any time, always feel free to reach out to me. Of course, I am on, Hardin County Schools email, shelley.clark@hardin.kyschools.us. And I believe that's in the EdCamp handouts too. But also I'm on Twitter, Shelee_Clark. So if you ever want to tweet the questions to me, I'd be happy to answer those there as well. And I hope everybody has a great rest of today. Lots of learning to happen. And I hope that, you know, you continue on the path of being principal. It's a hard job, but know that there's other people out there that can support you and make your job easier. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Stacy.